what I intend to do in this presentation is just give you a quick indication of what are the roots of the persecution of the Rohingya. Why is this happening now? Why is this happening on such a scale now? Why there has been no action from the international community, and what has been the role of Aung San Suu Kyi, and I'll touch upon what I believe is the future of the Rohingya. So the main accusation against the Rohingya that is made is that this term Rohingya is a manufactured term, and this term simply did not exist in history, and these Rohingya are all illegal immigrants from Bangladesh that came over in 1952, and some of the Burmese actually put a date, a further detailed date on it. They say this, and this term was manufactured in March of 1952, and before that time this term simply did not exist. So one of the things I did in my book is to try to examine the veracity of that accusation. So you have it here, that this term Rohingya simply does not exist. So I dug up documents, various multiple documents, including ones from the Indian National Archives in New Delhi. This is from the British Colonial Office, dated 1826 by Charles Patton. And in these documents you can clearly see that the term Rohingya, Rohingya is actually used. So this accusation simply does not stand up to historical scrutiny, even though I believe it's completely immaterial to the current situation, but I simply wanted to point that out. So in terms of the current crisis, how did all of this start? So when the Japanese invaded what was at that time British Burma in the Second World War, the majority Buddhist population supported the Japanese invaders, believing that the Japanese are going to be victorious and this is going to lead to swifter independence from the British, whereas the minority Rohingya population stayed loyal to the British colonial masters. So when the country did become independent in 1948, there was bad blood between the two people because the Rohingya were seen as having not supported the Buddhist majority population in their struggle for independence. But despite that, there was relative calm up until 1962, when there was a coup by the military chief General Ne Win, and he tried to implement what he called the Burmese Road to Socialism, which was a communist manifesto, and it was a complete economic disaster. So he did what a lot of military rulers do in that situation when things start to go wrong, is that they start to look for scapegoats on whom to blame all the ills of society. And the Rohingya minority, who were already looked at with suspicion, who looked different culture, different language, different feature, were the perfect minority for choice to blame all the ills of society. General Ne Win also became much more overt in his Buddhist outlook and started making statements such as only Buddhists can be loyal citizens to this country and none of these other people could ever be loyal Burmese. A number of laws were passed which culminated in the 1982 Citizenship Act, which stripped all the Rohingya of their nationality, making them amongst the largest stateless people in the world. General Ne Win was eventually overthrown in a revolution, but his regime stayed intact. Even though he was removed, and the regime became even more ethnocentric. So the question is, from that point on, the Rohingya have faced wave after wave of violence, being expelled from the country. But the key question is, why is this happening now in 2017? Why did this explode on such a scale? If I'm arguing that this has been going on since the Second World War, why is this happening on this scale now? So we have a number of genocide scholars here in the audience, and all of them will tell you that it is very common in the situations of genocide for the perpetrators of the genocide to undertake a dry run, to undertake a test run to see what is going to be the reaction of the international community, what is going to be the reaction of local actors. Are we able to get away with this? Are we able to take this up a couple of notches and execute the final solution? So the military in Myanmar undertook a test run in October 2016 when an organisation called ARSA undertook an attack on a number of security outposts that left a number of security officials dead. In response, the military engaged in massive human rights violations, and this is just some of the satellite imagery from Human Rights Watch at the time, November 2016. This is one of the villages before, and this is it after. This is another village before, and this is after. And these are some of the villages that were being destroyed by the Buddhist extremists at the time. And the key lesson that the military learned, so the military learned 3 critical lessons from this exercise in October 2016. The first lesson that they learned is that Aung San Suu Kyi defends the military in public. Aung San Suu Kyi has become a shield for all criticism against the military in the public domain. So for example, when the BBC journalist Fergal Keen said that there's ethnic cleansing going on in your country, she said ethnic cleansing is far too strong a term to use for what is happening. Both sides are equally to blame. So drawing a moral equivalence between the aggressor and the victim. When the United Nations Human Rights Commission called for a full-scale inquiry, she said this will not be very helpful, and it was her office that refused to give the UN visas. Now, I accept she does not control the military directly, but she is the foreign minister, and she is the interior minister, and she controls the visas, and she refuses and continues to refuse to give the UN access. When the United Nations also did a report in March 2017 saying that 52% of Rohingya females had been raped, she said on her Facebook page that this is fake rape, and she refused to take the statement back. So this is the first thing that the military learned. Aung San Suu Kyi defends the military in the public domain. That's the first reason. The second reason is that despite all the evidence, ethnic cleansing, genocide, rapes, burning villages, the European Union still laid out a red carpet for the military. General Min Aung Hlaing went on a spending spree around Europe for buying armaments, and I wrote to both the ambassadors of Germany and Austria. They did not respond, so I published letters online, and this you can see is May 2017, months before the current crisis erupted, because all Myanmar watchers knew exactly what was going to happen. You know, these things were quite obvious, that the military is militarizing the region, they're on a spending spree, they're essentially gearing up for a massive offensive. So almost everybody realised that, and the army chief was given literally a red carpet around Europe. So they realised that look, there's not much consequence despite all our actions. So that's the second thing that they learned, is that the European Union still rolls out a red carpet for us. And the third thing the military learned is that the military suddenly became very popular in Myanmar. The military in Myanmar was very unpopular, which is what forced them to have elections in the first place. But after this exercise against the Rohingya, they suddenly became very popular as the defenders of Buddhist values against these invading hordes of Muslims from Bangladesh. And so the military realised that look, our popularity has gone up dramatically as the defenders of Buddhist values. So after, in 2016, the military learned these 3 lessons, and they said, look, we can actually take this up a notch, and hence why they planned this entire exercise. Now the next question is, why has there been no action from the international community? You know, as Dr. Zandi said, you know, we've said repeatedly, never again, but we are standing here saying yet again, and I believe there's 3 reasons for this as well. Number one, that the Rohingya essentially are right at the bottom of the ladder in terms of international representation. There's hardly anyone amongst them on the international stage in the European Union or in the British Parliament, in the European Parliament of Rohingya origin. There's nobody of Rohingya origin in working for Al Jazeera or CNN that can take this up as a pet project. There is nobody of Rohingya origin working in Silicon Valley that's made millions from an app. I can say I'm going to put $5 million of my money into a public awareness campaign. These people are literally right at the bottom of the food chain. They had hardly any sort of representation globally. That's the first reason I believe that they're unable to advocate for themselves globally. The second reason I believe is the role of China. When President Obama was in office, he visited Myanmar on 2 occasions. For any country to get a visit from the President of the United States is a very big deal. Why did Obama visit Myanmar on 2 occasions? Because they believe that as Myanmar opened up, it was one of the most closed societies in the world, it's going to form the sphere of influence of China. All of Southeast Asia has now been reconfigured and redeveloped to meet one purpose, and that's China's insatiable demand for resources. And so China has aspirations to be a global superpower, but before it can become a global power, it must become a regional power, and that means keeping its regional nuclear rival, India, in check. Access to Myanmar gives it access to the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. They can thus surround India. So you have these geopolitical machinations going on between superpowers, India, China, United States, and then you insert this group called the Rohingya, who nobody's ever heard of. It does not fit into that equation. And the third reason I believe is the myth of a military coup. This idea that if we put too much pressure on Myanmar, there might be a military coup, the military might come back. And this is a myth, because the military is actually in the perfect position right now in Myanmar. They have power without any accountability, which is the holy grail of politics. They can get on with all the genocide, not just against the Rohingya, but almost every ethnic group, without any accountability at all from the international community. So I will leave it at that, and I'll be happy to take questions later. Thank you very much.